Hello, good evening, and welcome to the first episode of Matchday at the Cop. This is Mikhail Through, and the reason why I started the show is because I feel like there are two things that are very important. Number one, football, and number two, Liverpool, and in that order. But jokes apart, what's really important to me, I think, and what everybody's talking about is that we want a show that really kind of reflects what the fans are thinking. You know, what we talk about pubs, what we talk about in spas, what we talk about in sports fields. We want a show that reflects the fans. And well, this is a show that definitely reflects the fans' opinions and definitely takes into account everything that you guys feel and is translated by one of your own. So this is a show by all, for you all. I think it's a democratic republic of Liverpool and football fans across the world. So welcome to Matchday at the Cop, and let's make this one for the books. We're going to start our first segment by looking at match reactions, and the first match that we're going to start off is the match that basically started off the weekend's proceedings, and that is Aston Villa versus Arsenal. Now, nobody can deny that Aston Villa have been on some kind of a crazy upward trajectory since the sluggish start that they had to the start of the season, and nobody can deny the fact that they have outperformed themselves in the last 8 to 9 games. Apart from the defeat to Liverpool, they pretty much won every single thing, and Unai Emery's team has done something that very few teams in and around that bracket have managed to do, which is get over their disappointment of the previous season. Now, let's not forget that last season they came perilously close to finishing in the Champions League places and only lost out on goal difference to Chelsea and finished outside of the Champions League. But this season, they look like they're up for the fight and they're back in Champions League contention. In fact, as the weekend has finished, they finished third thanks to their last gasp victory over Arsenal. Now, let's get into what happened in that game. To be honest with you, they started off on the front foot. Aston Villa gave Arsenal a run for the money, and Arsenal themselves, not to forget, have been on an 18-match unbeaten run. But the way Aston Villa went for it, they really looked like they could have taken the lead at a couple of points in the game. A couple of near-missed chances right up until the point Matty Cash made it count by smashing it home between Raya's legs and giving Aston Villa a well-deserved 1-0 lead. Now, they went into halftime at 1-0, and everybody's question, including my own, which I was tweeting about, by the way, was that how are Mikel Arteta and Arsenal going to react to this? And I must say that the reaction was mighty impressive. Now, in the past, in the previous seasons, Arteta has been accused of these kind of games getting out of hand and being a bit too conservative. Surely, the second half substitutions were completely opposite of that. He got in Victor Gyökeres as well as Leandro Trossard, and Leandro Trossard had an instant impact as Arsenal made it 1-1. And at that point in time, I'm not going to lie, I thought this is definitely what champions are made of. They come back, they always do, don't they? And Arsenal have tend to do that. Remember Newcastle, 1-0 down, 2 goals in the end to make it 2-1, and they've done it throughout. They have just been so dominant and arguably one of the most dominant teams of Europe this season. But this game was different, because the team in front of them was also someone that was absolutely in red hot form, and that's what Aston Villa did. They went toe-to-toe against the Premier League leaders, and would you believe it, the last kick of the game, Bendia rolls it in, and there is absolute ecstasy in Unai Emery's body language and complete agony in contrast to the Arsenal players who fell to the ground, and understandably so. And let me be very frank, I am obviously a Liverpool supporter, but credit where credit is due. I definitely dispassionately have to say that Arteta did something that he hasn't done before. He went for it. The substitutions, the attitude, the body language, the intent of Arsenal's players was not to sit on 1-1. And while on the post-game, Arsenal's very own righty in right said that maybe Arsenal should have been pragmatic, taken the 1-1 and gone away because Villa Park is one of the hardest places to go. I take his point, but I do feel that Arteta definitely tried to turn a corner. You see, he's been in a title race with City 2 out of the last 3 seasons, and he knows that to win a title, you have to beat City. You can't just compete with them. And I think that's what he did. He went for the win. It turned out the other way, but kudos to both the teams who went for the win, and they gave us an absolute spectacle to kick off the Premier League weekend. My next game for the match reaction is the game between Chelsea and Bournemouth. Now, while the game was pretty much a 0-0, some would say drab draw, the game had broader implications on and that's what I want to throw light on. Now, the thing I want to discuss about Chelsea is that Chelsea has had quite a last 2 weeks or so. You see, they had that absolute incredible victory over Barcelona where they won 3-0, and Estevao wowed everybody, as I like to call him, Estevao. He was amazing, and they had this incredible win. And people said, you know what, Chelsea are here. They definitely turned a corner, and even without Cole Palmer, they look like real deal. And while I must say that the Club World Cup was pretty impressive over the summer as well as the start of the season, there have been moments in the game in the season which have made me feel that they are lacking that one secret ingredient, and the draw against Bournemouth made me feel so. The thing with Chelsea is that they've had two draws in the last two weekends, but both feel radically different from each other. While the game against Arsenal the draw felt like a win because of the way they were down to 10 men and they fought for that 1-1. This game against Bournemouth felt more like a loss because the situations were completely different. Of course, they had Moses Caicedo, their backbone, out for this game. But surely, if you want to compete for the Premier League title, you have to win these games. Now, that's not been happening. And I have a pretty decent kind of an sort of a reason analysis why I think that this is happening with Chelsea, and it's been happening with Chelsea for the last couple of years. And the reason for that is I think they don't have a very strong set of experienced Premier League proven players. So think back to Chelsea's most successful Premier League wins: 04, 05, 05, 06, 14, 15, 16, 17. What were the commonalities? A very strong set of players in there that were personalities, leaders. Think John Terry, Frank Lampard, Didier Drogba, later N'Golo Kante, Diego Costa. These are all players that were the backbone of a team. They were proven winners. When we talk about Diego Costa and, for example, somebody even like Courtois, they both came to Chelsea as La Liga winners from Atletico Madrid. N'Golo Kante came as a winner, or Premier League winner from Leicester. And the same thing can be said about Cesc Fabregas, who's a proven Premier League player, a player that was brought in by Mourinho into that team, and then they subsequently won the league with them. And I think that's what's missing over here. You know, when they got somebody like a Thiago Silva, the instant impact that he had, and the run that they went on, the famous Champions League win over Manchester City, they haven't even replaced somebody like that. And in fact, they need one or two more players like that to complement this incredible young talent they have. Of course, I think Caicedo is the talisman of that team. But with the likes of Cole Palmer and Estevao and a few others that they have that are really, really talented, I think even somebody like a James would really do with a good solid centre-back pairing, a senior sort of set of players. I know they have a lot of young talent, but good 27, 28, 29-year-olds, proven players from different leagues, from the Premier League, who've been in title races, who know how to win these dirty games 1-0, 2-1s, are actually of the essence. And I won't be surprised if Chelsea end up signing them in the winter transfer window or in the upcoming summer transfer window. But I definitely think that that is one place they need to fill, and I think that they will. So that's why I'm looking at that game against Bournemouth, and I think it's going to be another season where probably Chelsea finish in the top four, but do not compete for the Premier League title because of specifically these kind of weekends and these kind of games where they're not going to be able to pitch out results, which ideally they should have if they would be competing in the Premier League title race.
Now, before we get into the meat and bones of it, if you've liked what you've just seen, do share, like, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.
On to our next segment is the funniest meltdown of the week. Now, the funniest meltdown of the week by far, hands down, is Carragher's complete rant against Mo Salah, which has come out today evening. So Jamie Carragher has come out and said this, and I quote, "I think whenever Salah stops in the mix zone, which he's done 4 times in 8 years at Liverpool, it's choreographed between him and his agent to cause maximum damage and to strengthen his position. He did that 12 months ago and I called him out on this show about it. He played on the heartstrings of the Liverpool supporters. Liverpool were top of the league and he'd scored the winning goal at Southampton. That was the time to come out and put pressure on the Liverpool ownership. So for the rest of the season, you had banners in the crowd saying, 'Give Mo his dough.' He's chosen this weekend to do this now, and he's waited for a bad result. They've conceded a last-minute goal. The Liverpool supporters, the managers, the whole club feels like they're in the gutter at this moment, and he's chosen that time to go for the manager and maybe try to get him sacked. That's the way I felt about it. The line that stands out for me is thrown under the bus. He tried to throw the club under the bus twice in the last 12 months with the situations just mentioned." Now, there are a lot of disturbing things about those comments made by Carragher against Salah, and there are a lot of things that I completely disagree on over there. Number one, when Mo Salah apparently tugs on the heartstrings of Liverpool supporters while he's scoring a winning goal like Carragher said against Southampton. It's in the middle of a season where he's leading Liverpool to only their second Premier League title in as many as 35 years. So while he's tugging at our heartstrings, we weren't feeling bad at all, Jamie, because we were delighted that our talisman was taking us to the Premier League title, something which, unfortunately, with all due respect, you never did in all your years at Liverpool. Second of all, when he wants a good contract and he wants to get it from the club, there's nothing wrong with that. Wayne Rooney did that at Manchester United. He's still a Manchester United legend. Let's understand this is a business of football and fans get it. We all have jobs, we all have businesses, we understand how these things work. So it's not like fans are being taken for a fool here. Yes, we understand as where it comes to the second part that Salah has come out and spoken after this game when the fans, the club feels like they're really in the gutter. Yes, we do feel bad at the current moment in time, but we also understand that he's come out and spoken about this because he's not happy with the situation. He's not happy that he's being benched while the team is not performing, even after he's being benched. So when he was not performing, the team wasn't doing great. When he's been benched, the team hasn't been doing great. In the last 3 games that Mo Salah has been benched, Liverpool have drawn 2 and won 1. So there is no great change in performances as such. Yes, we scored 3 goals in the last game, but we did only score 1 goal in the previous one. So maybe Salah could have made a bit of a difference, maybe not. But the point is the performances have not gone radically up. So yes, he has chosen an opportune time to come out and say that, look, I'm not playing and we aren't performing that well either. And if that means that Slot gets the heat, well, Slot should get the heat because Slot did get the praise when we won the title last season. So, I mean, I understand us trying to protect our manager. I do get it. But throwing Mo Salah under the bus is exactly what Jamie Carragher is doing on this incredible rant. And he's doing it because he thinks he's protecting the club, but he doesn't realize being a white man speaking about an African player who's come to England and performed. And I don't want to take it in that direction because I know people don't like it. But you know, LFC do have a larger responsibility here. They have a global fan base. I happen to be one from a totally different country, man. And I know how it looks. It's not a good look because Jamie Carragher is not just a Scouser. Jamie Carragher is not just a Liverpool. Well, he's an ex-player for Liverpool, and I wouldn't go as far as to call him a legend, but he's definitely an ex-player for Liverpool, and he has a certain responsibility to the global fan base. And Mo Salah represents that global fan base that Liverpool have. And Mo Salah has done incredible amounts for Liverpool. So coming out and saying all this, which is again a rant, because if you say that what Salah did was a rant, well then what is this? Because honestly, what's it to you that if he did that to get a better deal from the club? The club earned millions from the performances that we put in on the pitch last season. So what if he got his millions? I mean, what's it to Jamie Carragher or any of us? We got our money's worth. We won the league. He got his money's worth. He got a good pay packet. Now he's not performing, so he's been dropped. Sure, that's a problem. After he got dropped, the performances didn't go up and he's come out and spoken. I do agree he could have avoided that. I do agree he could have done that a different way. But to come out and say that he's done it because the team is in the gutter. The team is not in the gutter because of Mo Salah. Mo Salah hasn't played the last 3 games. The team is in the gutter because as a unit, we haven't performed. And let's be honest, we look underprepared. We look undercoached. Let's be very straight up about this. The structure is all over the place. We have some 4 or 5 attacking players and no midfield in the end of the last 10 minutes of the games. We have a player like Ryan Gravenberch is playing as a centre back and there is no midfield happening for the last 15 minutes of so many games. What's going on? I mean, there are games in which we just look like completely undercooked. You know, we're looking out of ideas. We're looking jaded. The moment we go a goal behind, the morale starts dropping. That is not just about on the players. There is also responsibility on the players. I completely concur. But there is no structure to the game. There is no patterns of play. There are no principles of play, as Jose Mourinho likes to say. It's just anything is happening. There are no progressive passes. There is sideward movements, backward passes, sideward passes. It's completely lacking imagination. It's as if these players are not training on the ground at all, which we know they are because we see the pictures. And we know they are. So this is an incredible meltdown that has happened from Carragher this weekend. And I would like to say that before Carragher starts quoting Mo Salah, I think Carragher should have a good look at himself because I think he played for 16, 17 odd years. How many titles did he win? So does he begrudge another man for getting a good pay packet for delivering 2 titles? It was in poor taste and not for any other reason. However, these comments have obviously been taken very, very seriously by the Liverpool board, who have now decided to drop Mo Salah completely from the squad that is traveling to Milan. And while I understand that certain statements have to be made and the club has to show solidarity with the manager if they intend to indeed stick with the manager, I feel like what John Terry said is pretty much echoing what I'm feeling. And it was very funny because some people on X actually even said that, you know what, John Terry wouldn't have done something like that. And just then, ironically, John Terry puts up this tweet saying that, you know what, as much as I feel that Mo Salah shouldn't have said what he said, I feel the manager should have handled it in a different way. When a player of that kind of profile is dropped to the bench, then he must be called to the office and be explained to why exactly that he is not going to make the playing 11. And that's exactly what I'm trying to say. You know, there's a way to do things. When you are at a club like Liverpool, and let's understand this very, very clearly. Liverpool is not the Liverpool of 10 years ago. 10 years ago, Liverpool had iffy players, almost their players, some players who could be bought and made into stars with a manager who was already achieved. This club right now is in a completely different place. It has players like Virgil van Dijk. It has players like Alisson Becker, Alexander Isak, Florian Wirtz, and yes, Mohamed Salah. These are world-class players. Suddenly, it's not just important to be a good coach. You need to be a good man manager to handle these kind of personalities, and especially when things don't go well, and especially when you have to chop and change. I agree completely. The coach has all the discretion and he can do what he wants because that's his team and that's his job on the line. But there is a way to do it, and that is what we're talking about. My hot take is that this entire fiasco with Salah is not Salah versus Slot. I think this is more Salah versus Edwards and Hughes. That interview, I think, is definitely directed also to Edwards and Richard Hughes, because when he says that someone at the club doesn't want me to be here, I don't think really that he means the manager. He goes on to say that yes, his relationship has broken with the manager, but I don't think he's referring to the manager. I think he's pretty much thrown the hand grenade towards Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards because he believes that certain promises were made to him in the summer, which I can pretty much guarantee were not from Arne Slot, that was from the management above, and they have now probably gone against those promises. Now the thing is, Arne Slot isn't a manager, and that was something that had troubled me from day one. He has been given the title of head coach, and that means that while he coaches the team, he chooses it, he selects the teams, he comes up with the strategies, he does not make other calls such as recruitment. He's part of it, but he does not control it. He doesn't have that power and that stature that Jurgen Klopp and certain other ex-Liverpool managers in the past have enjoyed. And that is where the troubling part is, because when that gulf starts to grow, and when that it becomes more and more prominent, especially to players and especially to senior players, then it becomes a player versus board versus coach next kind of a triangle, and it becomes messy. We've seen that happen with United. We do not want that to happen with Liverpool, and that's why I'm paying attention to it. See, don't get me wrong, I don't want it to be like a player power kind of a scenario at Liverpool, but the truth is that when you sign a horde of superstar players, you're bound to have player power. That is the prerequisite of it. That is the way it goes. You see, all through these years, we never had superstars. We made them. But this is the first time. This is the window where we bought superstars. And well, we are looking to buy some more. Aren't we looking at getting Guehi? Aren't we looking at getting some other superstars from other clubs, pay big money? Well, what do you think happens when superstars come? They have their own attitude, they have their own personality. And while they have their own flair and they have their own swagger, which we enjoy so much, which we benefit from, we win trophies from, we also have to take the other side with a pinch of salt. And that is where I feel the closeness and the smooth running of the people in the committee with Edwards, Hughes, and the coach has to be more in synergy. I do think that Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes want to recuperate a significant sum from Salah's sale, but I just hope it's not in the winter transfer window, and I hope it's done in the correct manner. Well, there was a lot of drama over the weekend. Madrid lost to Celta Vigo 2-0, something that hasn't gone down well with the Madrid hierarchy. There are talks that Xabi Alonso is to be sacked. Now, I find these midweek ultimatums given to managers rather funny, and I'll tell you why. This is not a cup final. You lose, you're out. This is not a definitive last game of the season. If you don't win the title, you're out. No, this is not even the definitive part of the season. This is the part of the season when it starts to get warmed up and you start to make those inroads into tournaments, into the league. Now, given they were ahead of Barcelona a few weeks ago, and now they find themselves 4 points behind. But yet, like, they're more than 20 games to go. And remember, Xabi Alonso in his first year at Real Madrid, and there's a huge difference. Xabi Alonso is a tactician, and I felt it from day one that if things were to go wrong here, they would go wrong for this one singular purpose, and that is that Madrid don't do well with tactical coaches. They do better with man managers. Now, I'll go into more detail with this. The difference between a tactical coach and a man manager is somewhat like a tactical coach comes into a team, has few players, and then buys a few ones, like he did at Leverkusen when he bought Granit Xhaka, but makes diamonds out of unpolished gems such as Florian Wirtz, Jeremy Frimpong, and then he makes do with that team and he makes them into stars. It's very different when you are in a superstar club, because in a superstar club you come into a team and you don't make the team, you are given the team, and that's what's happening with Xabi Alonso. And that's why I feel my fears were when he got the job was, is it a bit too soon to get the Madrid job, because he hasn't been at anything close to Madrid before. And I think that's why maybe another club and then Madrid. But then, of course, when you have Madrid calling and when you get your dream job, who says no? So I do get that. But then if you give that man a job, give him a chance. Or, I say this, sack him or back him. But this whole bumble idea, which is kind of reeking into football, I don't understand. If you win against City, then you stay. Well, okay, what if he wins against City and then loses over the weekend? Then what? It doesn't really make sense, if you know what I mean. So I think either you sack him or you back him. And I think in this case, I really feel that Xabi Alonso needs some time. He's dealing with a lot of superstars right now. He's dealing with players who are incredibly powerful. They have a power structure. We all know that. Florentino Perez spends a lot of time deciding which player he wants for which position, because he wants the best players in every position. But the thing is that while you can have all these fancy toys, you need to make them all work together, and that's what we've seen in several great sports dramas and films, that it's one thing to have superstars and it's another to make them work together. And I think without significant time, I think it'll be difficult for Xabi Alonso to just turn it around in a matter of a game or two. So I think, and I don't really think it's going to be easy for him against Pep Guardiola, City, who are on the rise, and it's not going to be an easy game. So I hope the best for Xabi. I think he's a super tactician. I think he will really, really do well at a big club. And that's why I want to reiterate that this is not a big club, small club thing. If you look at what happened with PSG, the entire control and the reign a year and a half ago was given to Enrique. And look at the way Enrique has turned it around. Of course, sure, he had the likes of Dembele, he had the likes of Vitinha, but he was given that complete freedom to make his own team. And they have been a superstar team also for the last 10 years. And of course, they lost Mbappe and they lost Messi, but they kind of made a team and they won what they wanted. They climbed their Everest, they won the Champions League. And that is what is a kind of project that Xabi Alonso, I think, requires and I think would revel in. I dare say that the next job that he might have will probably be at the Premier League club. Now, which one is that? I don't know. But wink, wink, it could be a club that we really love and maybe what this show was kind of inspired to be coming from. But anywho, for now, we move on and we wish Xabi Alonso best. And I hope that the title race also kind of heats up, because I think it's going to be a hot race. Barcelona's back in front. Hansi Flick he's got his problems. He lost 3-0 to Chelsea, but he is looking set to defend the title, and I do see them going a little, a far distance in the Champions League, maybe far in the knockouts, because the thing with the Champions League is, as we've seen last season, it doesn't matter if you finish first, as we really did, and we were very happy and super excited. It matters where you end up, and that's the thing with Barcelona. If they kind of find that form at the right time, just like PSG did last season, then you never know, they could go really far. They have the team, they have the manager. You never know what happens with them. So let's see. The La Liga looks hot, and it definitely again looks like a title race between Barca and Madrid, and it could go anywhere. And if it gets as hot as we think it will, we're definitely looking for the El Clasico, aren't we? Now to my next hot take topic, which is about Oliver Glasner and the Crystal Palace revolution. Now, let me say this at the onset. I have a lot of time for Oliver Glasner. I think he's done an incredible job at Crystal Palace, and the late winner by none other than Guehi. Yeah, that hurts. Another late winner by Guehi puts them in the top 4. And what a remarkable last 6 months has been for Oliver Glasner. Which brings me to my hot take, that is it the right thing for Oliver Glasner to probably quit, which is what's being said, probably quit Crystal Palace at the end of the season and probably take up a bigger job, maybe at Manchester United. Some people are even rumoring him to be the next choice if Arne Slot were to be at Liverpool. Now that's my thing. Would somebody like an Oliver Glasner succeed better at a bigger club? Or is it better for these kind of managers like Unai Emery, like Oliver Glasner, to be at the clubs where they're already thriving? Now we've seen that with Unai Emery. He was at Arsenal and you saw what happened. It didn't really go the way it was supposed to. But he is an incredible manager. Nobody can take that away from him. He succeeded at Sevilla and he's succeeding exceedingly well at Aston Villa. So what is it? I feel it's a hot take. My hot take in this is that some managers are meant for a certain profile of club. Like I just spoke about Xabi Alonso. I think he could be a great Madrid manager maybe 4 years from now or 3 years from now. I feel like Oliver Glasner's present scenario, I think he's doing really well where he is. Areola is another example that I think could do really well at a bigger club. But with Glasner, I feel like he's doing so well at Crystal Palace. Would he do that well at another club where the expectations are to play a certain kind of football and have a certain kind of structure? Then would that be a far cry from what he's doing already right now? And would that take away from then the results that he's having? Would those players then be performing the way they are, kind of going out and beyond and above everything and giving their all? Would he have those kind of players that would give everything for him? How long does that take? Do those big clubs have the patience, have the time to invest the way Crystal Palace has invested, the way Aston Villa has invested? Because when they start investing in these kind of managers, they're down in the table. They may be 13, 14. Crystal Palace was, I think, the bottom half of the draw. Unai Emery took over Aston Villa, I think they were 17. So they have all the time in the world. But when they go to a big club, they're expected to perform from ball one. And there is no time to create that chemistry, that synergy between the players and the coach and the strategy. And I think that kind of sort of creates that lacuna for them that becomes impossible to kind of fill over time, because if the foundation is not strong in the beginning, then kind of shows, cracks start appearing and then it's just not the same. So my hot take is, I think the likes of Oliver Glasner, I think the likes of Unai Emery are doing an incredible job where they are. They could probably be Champions League place managers for their clubs at the end of the season, which would be, I think Crystal Palace finishing in the top 5 would be as amazing as Arsenal winning the league. Let me be frank, because I think it would be even more amazing than Arsenal winning the league. I think it would be even more amazing than City winning the league, because I feel like these guys have the raw material, but these teams, they're not even expected to be in the top 6, top 7 or top 8. So if they can finish in the top 4 or 5, I think it's incredible. And that's why my hot take is that let these managers think long and hard. That I think everybody should be allowed to make their big move, but I think they should think that, is the grass always greener on the other side? Perhaps not. In my player form analysis segment on Matchday at the Cop, I want to discuss a player who I have a lot of time for. I think we've had a lot of people speak about him, but we just can't speak about him enough, and the player is Declan Rice. I was watching the game between Aston Villa and Arsenal, and believe me, he was everywhere. He was blocking a shot, I think, in the first half. We took it on, I think, on his solar plexus. He was tracking back on the left-hand corner side. He was giving progressive passes in the forward half of the midfield. He takes corners. He's now beginning to take throw-ins from what Arteta is saying. Arteta said that, Declan Rice is going to now start taking throw-ins because he can do everything. And believe me, if there's one time I do not argue with Mikel Arteta, is when it comes to Declan Rice. I think the man can do everything. And I think we are really, really privileged as football lovers. Of course, it burns my heart to see him play for a rival because he's so good, but we are really privileged to see a player like this. I don't say this just because he's British. I have all the time in the world for Moses Caicedo. I think he is criminally amazing. I mean, he should be locked up, arrested for how good he is. I have the highest regards for Moses Caicedo, but I must say that Declan Rice is right up there as well. And I think we are really, really blessed that we are in an era where we have so many good number 6 players. I mean, of course, we have Rodri at Man City. Of course, like I said, Caicedo is there. Of course, there's Gravenberch, who had an incredible season last year, but Declan Rice for me, I think, is as complete as it gets. He's just everywhere. There's so many things he does. Invariably, when there's an attack and somebody needs to be there as a last line of defense with the defender, and if the defender's out of position, it is Declan Rice. It is Declan Rice at the post. It's Declan Rice literally on the corner side fighting to save and waste time if they have 3 minutes to go and take it to the flag. It's unbelievable. He's literally got that gas in him, that kind of gas that you expect from an N'Golo Kante or those kind of players, but he actually has that along with the finesse of doing a free kick in a Champions League night against Real Madrid. That is a kind of range that we've really not seen in a very, very long time from a player in the Premier League. I think Wharton is doing an incredible job at Crystal Palace as well, and I think this segment has become more of a number 6 or number 8 loving segment, but I have a lot of time for midfielders. I think they are in this season proving to be the difference makers for teams. I think the key to teams, the key to the Premier League this season are the midfield. The more and more I see Crystal Palace play, the certain moves that Adam Wharton makes and creates the spaces and just opens up the play, I think we're going back into a time more and more from having sort of kind of like workmen-like midfielders to now having midfielders who can do 2-3 things all in one. And I think those kind of midfielders are coming back into fashion, and really those are the kind that are a treat to watch because they're a rare breed. There are not too many people who can do that. They're people who can defend and they're people who can attack. But then those midfielders, like we were privileged to have a Steven Gerrard at Liverpool for the longest time, and we saw what he did. He could just pretty much do everything: long range, headers, play the second striker, play as a number 6 in the last few years of his career. So that kind of joy of watching Declan Rice, I think, is amazing. Like I said, I wish he wore the red of Liverpool, but credit where credit is due, and he is definitely a form player that I want to talk about this weekend. Then my last segment is about next week, what I'm going to be discussing in great deal. And next week, I'm going to be talking about the signings made by Liverpool and FSG over the transfer window. We're going to talk about, as Mourinho likes to say, the players that were sold, if they play, where they play, how they play. Yep, we're going to talk about them as well because, as many of you all know, as much as the new signings affected this season for Liverpool, the players that have left have also kind of left their own mark and maybe a void that has been difficult to fill. There are also players that we almost signed. I already spoke about Guehi. I'm not going to speak more about that. But there are a lot of things that happened this summer. It was an incredibly busy summer, and I want to get into detail. I don't want to just discuss about the ratings, and I just don't want to say what was good, what was not. I want to discuss in great detail about and analyze in terms of what Liverpool could have looked like had some players been kept, or if some other profile of players had been bought in before the transfer window shut, and what were the options and what could have been maybe how we could have been if those options would have been considered. So I think it's a great fun thing that I'm looking forward to doing. Another thing that I'm going to discuss next week is how the teams are going to be without the players who are going to go to AFCON. Now, there are a lot of teams, Sunderland for example, who are going to be very, very badly hit by the number of African players that are going to be missing due to AFCON. Of course, Liverpool have Mo Salah going to AFCON. Of course, he's not been playing recently, but he's going to be going. There are going to be a lot of clubs that are going to be missing players. So how is it going to affect different clubs differently? And I think that's going to be a very interesting conversation. I'm looking forward to it. It was a pleasure bringing the first episode of Matchday at the Cop to you. I look forward to seeing you next week. And until then, this is Mikhail Kantru signing off. It was an absolute pleasure. Good night. Take care of yourself.